Sharanya, it is your book launch.
Yeah.
The Quiet Voice Within.
It is.
I have to say that very softly. So thank you. It's such a privilege to be here interviewing today for your first ever podcast.
Yeah.
What made you choose to want to do it in this format? I know you do a lot of videos and stuff.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Laavanya.
Oh,
I can't think
pleasure.
of anyone more loving and fun and more enjoyable to do this with. And I had lots and lots of ideas of how to launch the book. And I basically Googled how to launch a book. It's my first book. And every time I thought about the different ways, like big events, I just got really tired. People don't realize that I am very introverted. And when I just actually tuned in and followed my own book and asked, my inner voice, what's the best way to do this that feels right? I just had this picture of you and I sitting with a cup of tea, like a massive soup bowl of a teacup.
No, it's great. It's a great
sitting,
cup.
Yeah, and just talking through it because I love the format. I love like a long format. I don't kind of subscribe to the 5-minute attention span. I think there is that out there, but I also think that people are happy to sit and listen to someone that they're interested in for an hour. I can't get enough of people that, so I thought it would work. And I think it's a nice way to discuss the book in a way that's very relaxed. And I just knew that having a conversation would be a real fun, lovely way to do it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so really, thank you.
Well, on behalf of everyone, I'm sure we're going to enjoy the next hour or so.
Yeah.
Depending. So, let me go start with the first things first. How did you feel when you first saw the book in your hands?
There's a video of me opening the package on Facebook.
Yes, I saw that.
On Instagram.
Yeah.
And it looks like I'm a 6-year-old child. I've like ripped it
writes
open.
very well.
I just felt like dancing. It was, and I'd spoken to my friends who are authors, and they said it's in digital format for so long. I used dictation and I used a transcribing website to help me formulate the chapters, and it was digital for so long. And when you have the what one of my mentors, Andrew Griffith, says, the thud factor, which is you can just hear the book.
Yeah, amazing.
It's like the thud factor. It's a real physical, tangible experience of the book. It was just mind-blowing. It was something that just took me a long time to do. And when it was printed in this format, I felt really proud, but I just felt really joyful. I had cheated before, and I'd been to Officeworks several times.
I was thinking, oh my God, that's like
and
exclusive.
had the thud factor. I'm like, I'm getting the thud factor. This is taking too long.
You cheated? What did you do?
Yeah, but when it actually came back officially, with the cover, and it's so pretty.
It's lovely. It's really lovely.
The designers did such a beautiful job of it. It was just a real proud moment. It was just amazing.
Yeah. And I know it's not been an easy journey. It took almost 4 years.
It did.
To come about. So how did you listen to your inner voice? What were the key messages that you found through this journey in particular relating to the book?
Well, to writing the book.
Everything is,
Yeah, so you're right. It did take 4 years, and I mentioned that in the book. And I really find that having the book now in my hands, the whole journey has been my own transformation. Like the book has given me everything it possibly could, and whatever else comes is truly like the cherry on the cake. It's a bonus. But the 4 years was a practical experience of tuning into my inner voice. And so it started off, so I'd written 3 manuscripts beforehand, like 3 fully fledged books, ready to go to the editor. They say, get it into the best version you can possible, and then send it to the editor, which is advice I took. And I'd done that 3 times, and I got to the end of 3 books and said, this is not, I don't want to publish it. And the reason being is that it progressively got closer to my heart. So the first one was written straight from my head. Yeah. What are the 10 steps to? And it's just very logical and from the perspective of what I think someone would want to hear. Okay. So that's where I started. Yeah. That was the first book, and it was very acutely written for the clients I was working with, my coaching clients. So it was a very kind of niched book. And then the second version was, so the message is about trust in yourself, but let's take it to the wider audience and not just have it for single women who are dealing with relationships. Let's take trust out into the trust out into the world for anyone who can pick it up. But it was still written from my head. So that book was called The 12 Decisions of Trust.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's I might probably do some YouTube vlogs on it. But because the content's really interesting. Or maybe on a podcast, yeah. And so, but it was still very head driven. It was really not tuned in, but it was getting more and more into my heart because I was being guided a lot more. And then when I distilled the message down of what am I trying to say, what do I want to say, what's my purpose in writing this book? The purpose changed several times, but the third one was really getting into my inner voice. Like that's my message. If everyone knows their inner voice and listens to their inner voice, I think there'd be less stress in the world. But having said that, that third book was about the 7 steps to listening to your inner voice. So I got to the end of that book and it was great. It was 7 steps and I thought people can really follow this. And I got to the end and my inner voice said, these are your steps, not everyone else's.
I see.
And I was like, now you tell me.
Could have said this earlier on.
Now you tell me. But I had to go through it.
Yeah.
I had to kind of get it out what I thought would be a teaching tool. And I shifted. The main shift between that third version and this version is that I'd written that previous version with the voice of a coach and with the voice of a teacher.
Yeah.
And the intention was to teach. And I got to the end, I'm like, I don't want to, teaching turned to preaching. And I was like, I don't like the feel of this. Like, I don't like the tone of it. And I respect the message and I love what's written, but something doesn't feel right about it. And it took a while to get to this version. But I tell you what, if you're having trouble, go to Costa Rica. I went to Costa Rica with my husband. Yeah. And we meditated and I just got really clear about what I wanted to write in a book. And I came back from that trip and June, July, August, 3 months, straight after coming back from that trip, I wrote 10 chapters.
Amazing.
I wrote 10 chapters and then I sent it to the editor. She came back with a lot of feedback and wrote an additional 4. And so all in all, it took about maybe 9 to 10 months to get it from
like having a baby.
A to Z. It is. Yeah. I have said that to people. That's what I've been telling my parents. I've been asking me, I'm like, this is the first baby. Yeah. And so I got to the end and it was the first time I was like, I'm proud of this.
Amazing.
And after 4 years,
what an accomplishment.
It was such a long journey. Yeah. Especially when people are asking, how's your book going? I'm like, which one? And then I finally got to it and I felt really proud of it. And I was like, yes, this I can send to the 4 corners of the globe. Like this is something that's straight from my heart and I am willing to ride this wave for as long as it can.
Amazing. That's actually a really good segue because I was going to say, you mentioned about the globe. Do you think the world is just more receptive now to hearing about the inner voice and not think of it as like, you know, in the past, historically, unfortunately, people tend to think of that voice as not being something that is conducive to being sane. Yeah. Whereas now it's like, what's your thoughts and the world's point of view, as it were?
Yeah, it definitely has changed. I mean, I'm 36. And when I was a child, because it starts when I was 11 years old, when I first heard my inner voice. And at that time, we didn't have the internet. And so on TV, in my magazines for teenagers that I was reading, and in newspapers, it was very rare to read the word consciousness, like to see the word consciousness written. And it was huge in my spiritual organization. Like that's all they talked about, you know, consciousness, raising consciousness. In the Hindu prophecies, we talk about the Kali Yuga being the yuga, the time era where humanity is most disconnected from its source and from that inner voice and from its own consciousness. So we're really head up and we're not integrated between our heart and our head or our soul and our mind. And so I heard all that in one aspect of my life, like in my spiritual community. And then I'd go to school and I'd watch TV and there was nothing anywhere of it. It was just such a disparate experience. Like it was very binary. It had its place, that kind of conversation and those words. And it's been a real privilege over the years to be aware and to watch these certain words become so culturally normal.
Definitely.
Consciousness, soul,
yes,
even,
exactly.
intuition.
Yeah.
And I think it's all down to Oprah. Single-handedly, I think
gotta get your book recommended by her, and then we'll be fine.
Yeah, do you know what? Actually, when I went to Officeworks at one of those times, I put you know how you put a quote at the top?
Yeah.
My quote was Oprah. Oprah fully endorsed it at Officeworks.
You never know. The second version could have it. Who knows?
Oprah, call me.
It's your chance, Oprah. Don't miss it.
She's just just someone I really looked up to, and she was a real saving grace when I was in school, because there was that voice, there was that spiritual aspect, and over the years, Oprah became more comfortable going into those spiritual concepts, because in the beginning it was very sensitive and treated very cautiously. And now if you look at her, it's just open-hearted. It's just the message just flowing through. And so it's been a privilege to see the world shift, because people are shifting, individuals are shifting, and they're coming into themselves, and they're seeking. People are seeking. There's a lot of, self-development, self-improvement for a reason. 100%. It has its place, and spirituality is becoming just so accessible. Yeah.
I think
it's been beautiful.
I think you've hit the nail with the idea of accessibility.
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things that I love about the book is having the privilege of heard you speak in person and share some of those experiences in front of hundreds of people, and it's felt as intimate as us two sitting here, which has always really struck me. How did you go about taking those experiences, but at the same time, you mentioned your earlier book about the 7 tips, as it were, trying to combine them and then choose from so many different experiences and trying to think, how am I going to put all of that in here? Because there's some I've heard of and some I've never heard before. Yeah. And I'm like, I'd love to, when was this during that talk? And, there's just so much. And obviously, I'm sure you can write heaps more. How did you go about that? Was it solely your inner voice, or was there, did you map things out? And I'm sure everyone would love to hear one of your experiences from that you feel could
So it was a really fun process. The other 3 books, I keep throwing back to it because it really was a process, and I can't say I wrote this book in 3 months.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds amazing. I'd love to be that intelligent, but it really did take 4 years. And so what I did differently with this book, after trying and testing other people's methods of writing books and listening to other authors and getting ideas and then trying it on myself, what I found worked for me was realizing that I'm a speaker. I'm a better speaker than I am a writer. I can articulate a lot more clearly when I'm sharing a story than when I'm trying to write a paragraph about a story. And so what I ended up doing was an interesting method of writing a book. I almost broke all the rules I had set for myself prior. Yeah, and so I started off with a blank piece of paper and I wrote down 10 ideas, 10 themes, loose structures. One was courage, one was manifestation, loosely, just 10 ideas. And I said to myself, this was the difference between this one and the other 3.
I see.
I said to myself, you can take as long as you want to write this book. There's not going to be any deadline. Every other time there was a deadline.
Yeah.
It's let's get this done. Let's be the bee, let's have a goal and let's work towards it. It's a very masculine energy way to do, to create something. And this book is really about me stepping into my own feminine, and the feminine doesn't work in that kind of structure. And so I said, as difficult as it was to not allow myself to have a deadline, because that's just how the world works. Yeah. It's there's lazy, these words, lazy, and
it's name calling that you talk about.
It's just, there's so many put downs about this idea. But I just was no, I'm not going to put a deadline on it. Came back from Costa Rica and I said, this book might take you 2 years to write. And if it does, fine. Take 2 years, write it. And so I didn't put a deadline on when I wanted it done. I thought, however long it takes, that's however long I'm going to allow myself to write it for.
So refreshing.
Yeah, it was so, and then it ended up taking 3 months.
Wow, amazing.
Which was so much shorter than all the other ones.
You apply that rule to the rest of your life.
It's so nerve-wracking. Yeah. It's actually so difficult. It was really difficult to do. But once I decided there's no deadline. I wrote out a timeline for the 10 different things, and I just not a timeline. I wrote out like a list with the 10 different ideas, and put it on a piece of paper. And it was kind of like a format for writing the book. So we have to write the chapters, then we have to re-edit them, and then we have to get the editor. So I wrote like the whole map of what might happen over those 2 years, 4 years, 6 months, whatever. It was like, this needs to happen, but I'm not going to tell myself when I want anything done by. And that was the game changer. That was something that really shifted everything, because then I just relaxed with it. And listening to your inner voice is completely tied into how relaxed you are. And so that brought in the relaxation. And so then what happened was I would not pick an order for how I wanted to write the book, because before I had written the whole plan, I had brainstormed each chapter, and then I would just go from A to Z with the whole thing. And this time I said, no, I'm not doing it that way. So I would feel which theme was coming at me, and I would just marinate in it for like a week or 2 weeks. And I tell you what, ideas would just come because I'm just relaxed. I'm washing dishes, I'm driving the car, and then your subconscious is really relaxed. And then these memories would come up, random memories that I'd forgotten about. And each time a chunk would come, I'd get a signal of now. And what that meant was, now's the time to write. But I didn't write, I spoke. So I got out my iPhone.
Perfect.
And I dictated whatever was coming through. And so in this way, I was active, but also receptive. And so it's both. It's like a balance of action with relaxation. And so I would just chunk these ideas into my iPhone as voice memos. And then there's an amazing website called rev.com. rev.com, and you send it off to them.
Nice plug.
They're not sponsoring me, but I'm open to it.
There we go. We'll get in touch.
We'll get in touch. Yeah. And they and what they do is they take your audio and they transcribe it and send it back. Yeah. It's so accessible to anyone in the world to be able to do this. You can do it with blogs, you can do it with articles. There's so many ways you can really utilize them. And I did it with the book. And so it would come back in a format, fairly well edited. Yeah. And then I'd have, 6 or 7 of those for this particular theme, and I would print it off and I'd sit with it and then I'd edit it.
That's nice.
And those became the chapters. Yeah. Yeah. So each chapter was about 2 weeks. Yeah. 1 to 2 weeks. And so, in 3 months I'd written the first 10.
I think that's, I find that fascinating, because when I read this, having known you, for me, it's just like literally hearing your voice speak to me. Yeah. Like it's uncanny. And I guess because now you explain the process as well, I think you've done the best thing, which is just taking your spoken word and put it down on paper. Yeah. And especially on a topic like this, like what better than that? Yeah. So, it's literally like having you next to me, and you just talk through and share your inspiring experiences, of which I'd love to hear, not just, I've read the book, but for those of you who haven't yet, I'm sure you will soon, if you wanted to share one of the particular gems in there. It doesn't have to be the huge epic ones, but even the smaller, subtle but really powerful experiences. There's just so much in there.
I'm going to tell the story for my dad's benefit, because I think my dad might watch this, because I don't know if my dad's read this book, but anyone who's read the book... I think
they both have, because I saw your parents recently. Did you? And I did say something, oh my God, isn't it amazing? And they were just beaming. They're so proud.
It's so cute.
And one of my other questions, which you can answer after this, is the fact that they mentioned that your grandmother had read it, and your grandmother obviously had a big influence in your life, and still
so cute.
Has. And you talk about her really fondly and lovingly in this. So I'd love for you to just, I want to find out what she thought of it, obviously. Yeah. I could probably guess. Yeah. But then I also wanted to know how you felt at that moment, knowing that, she'd read your book.
Oh, honestly, because it's taken 4 years. I'm like, I really want this to be published. She's 91 now. Wow. I really want her to have it in her hand.
Yeah, of course.
Because I visited South Africa a couple of years ago, and she's like, I said to her, I'm writing a book. And she's like, which one? Like another one? And I'm like, no, the same one I told you about 2 years ago. Same one, Grandma.
Love it. Amazing.
She's like, okay, finish it. I come from a line of women that just work. Yeah. They are so incredible, and they have relaxation in their action, and that's something I've had to develop. And so that's what I've learned from my mum and my grandma. My mum will just wake up, and my grandma's the same. They're cut from the same cloth. But I don't know, I've had to like go find my way with this. But they'll just wake up early, plod along all day, just doing certain things, being creative in their lives, using their hands, you know, to make things, to create, to feed us, to educate themselves, you know, and with such relaxation. So they enjoy work, and so that's I've been really blessed to have my mom and my grandma in my life to showcase that for me, to go, that's what it looks like. You know, you can see it, you can do it. So yeah, to answer your question about my grandma, she was really proud. So she called me up, and we were talking, and she said, I've read it, and I read it really quickly, and it's really good and well done. And it was like, oh, beautiful. And then I spoke to her just the other day, and she's like, I'm reading it again, but really slowly.
Oh, bless her soul.
Yeah, she's like,
should get her on a podcast as well.
Oh, I love her. You'd have to like hide the camera because she's really camera shy, but we can definitely do it. But she said, you know, I'm reading it really slowly and sinking my teeth into it, and it's really interesting seeing how people are consuming it in different ways. And a few people have said that to me, like they've read it from cover to cover, and now they're just kind of the way I wrote it, like whichever called out to me is how they're reading it. So there's a chapter, like they might just be called to read the one on, you know, emotions, and then and that's just what they need at the time, and they'll sit with it for a while.
Yes, I feel exactly the same. I feel like I've earmarked certain parts where I need to revisit that then again, and just take my time to really absorb, because there's so much goodness and love in this that you want to get through it, because you just want to know like what's next and what can you tell me. And there's like simple things from your tips on like thinking about the cleansing power of water. Like even in the shower this morning, I was like, I got reminded of that and started like thinking of that when I was in the shower.
So but then, cool to hear that.
It's just so like it's really practical. Yeah. But then at the same time, you've got like the higher level stuff, as it were, when you were talking about divine intelligence, and then like things that you really need to sit, reflect, like meditate upon. Just because we've finished the book, it doesn't mean that, you know, it's going to be automatic. It's going to take a lot of time, which you can see through your journey. Is there a particular experience that you want to share?
Yeah, there is. Yeah? The one with my dad. Yeah. So, so when I was in university, at this stage, my relationship with my inner voice was ad hoc. So, I was working on taming my mind and bringing my mind to really align with being my best friend in all different aspects. And I was still working on that, and not like taking things personally and putting myself in situations, you know, that weren't aligned with who I am and my heart, you know. And so just still working through my mind. And so when I would have experiences with the inner voice, it was flashes of insight. Yeah. Right? So it was better than gut feeling. It was like flashes of insight where like messages would come, or like words would come, or like an idea would come. I was sitting, you know the story I'm going to say, right? Yeah. I was sitting in my university computer lab, and I was just doing emails, and I came across this email that was this really crude joke. And I'm like, oh, this is gold. So I wanted to send it straight off to my friend. And instead of typing in Dan, I typed in dad without thinking, didn't even look properly, and then just sent it. I'm like,
I just remember reading that and feeling like every single person who read that
such an awful
would have felt you being like, oh.
It's such a conservative family. Like, I'm not meant to be reading
even then,
these jokes.
Like any dad.
Something like maybe now I'd be fine, you know, because you've got that relationship. But my gosh, I was 18 or 19, I think, when it happened.
Oh, we should have a bloopers where you tell us the actual crude joke. But like, anyway, sorry, carry on.
Funny, yeah. I was trying to remember exactly what it was, but I just remember going, oh, no, not dad. Yeah, definitely not dad. And I just froze because I was just like, how do I get out of this? This is so awkward. I just remember going, and I was 13 hours away from my dad. God. I was in like a whole different city. And I just froze, and I was so awkward, and I was not yet in panic. I was still just in numb, like just shock.
Poor
This is how
thing.
conservative and how like traditional we were, like that this would be such a traumatic experience. But yeah, I was just shut down and I was so numb. And I just remember the walls of the computer lab disappearing, closing in, like everything just went a bit psychedelic. It just went a bit weird. And then a flash of insight just came to me. And I think it comes, because I always kind of reflect on why did it come? What was happening in that moment? Like it's not just always grace and luck. What happened in that moment? And I think because my brain froze, there was no thoughts coming in. Like I didn't know what to think. I was just in like it was shock heading towards panic. And my my inner voice, it always communicates to you, but it just had full access.
Yeah.
And so I saw it and I heard it. And it was like a download of an idea. So I can explain it in a paragraph and I can talk about it for 4 minutes, but it was literally like a half a second, like a flash of an idea, a flash of insight. And it basically guided me to go into the spam folder of my email and select like 50 hideous emails from like, try this supplement to Viagra and erectile dysfunction and like just the worst emails. If you go into your spam folder, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. I just selected 50 and it said send them all to your dad. I'm like, what? And then I thought about it. I'm like, this is genius.
Oh my God. So that's the top tip, everyone. Key message from the book. Spam your dad.
It's so hilarious. And I just sent them all to my dad. And you've got to go. Like you can't, I think even now, like with Gmail, you can't select a whole bunch and forward it all in one go, which would be so much easier. I've tried that. I had to go individually. Oh my gosh. So I'm looking at these individual like subject lines going, oh. Like if I felt awkward before, this was just horrendous. But there was this genius behind this idea, which was not me, like just guiding me to do it. And I just sent 50. And I had a Nokia phone because there was no such thing as smartphones back then. And I texted my dad and I said, hey, Dad, something's happened to my email. I don't know what's going on. Just delete everything you get from me today.
Oh, my God.
And so I don't know if he caught on because he's pretty switched on, my dad. And so he might have seen that email come through, but I don't know. And we've never talked about it. I've put it in the book for everyone to talk about.
Maybe he was just so proud of his smart daughter. Trying to
he's like, that's my child. Yeah. He'd definitely be like, yeah, that's my child. Yeah. That's something I created. Like so and so that experience was so powerful because I was stuck. My brain couldn't help me. Like my mind really had switched off. And this idea had come from a different place that felt like a genius because it's not my idea. Like this was so incredible. I was like, this is such a great idea. I'm home free. Save my ass. And so these flashes, that's what kind of kept me on the track of pursuing a relationship with the inner voice. When you have these experiences, it's like there's something there. I don't know what it is, but it's something. There's something there. And it just kind of really these little tiny moments. And it was once in a while. Like I don't think that kind of experience, this flash of insight was just so rare that when it happened, it was enough juice to keep me invested in this relationship because it's a lot of work.
Yes.
Like developing a relationship with your inner voice sounds great. It's a lot of work because you've got to bypass or work with your mind, work around it, work with your mind because that's the loudest voice in your head. And so to hear the quiet voice within takes a lot of work. And so just these experiences kind of just kept me on track.
Yeah. I think like what I found particularly beautiful with the book in particular is that when you think of the inner voice, obviously there is that higher divine intelligence that comes through, like you said, like, you know, this idea and you're like, where's that from? That's definitely not me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll all have those experiences. But then at the same time, what I loved is the simplicity of it as well. So if you don't mind like sharing, like, you know, you mentioned about it, trying to train it, not necessarily train it, but train yourself to listen to it, and in terms of like using like binary like questions, the yes no questions. So starting off with the little things and how you develop up further. So it's not always the big, like you will ask those big questions and listen to those big answers, but then like how are we going to get to that level? Like how do you know it's not your ego?
Yeah, so this was a part of the book that was written specifically because a lot of people would come up to me and say, I really want to know what my inner voice is trying to tell me. I want to know what my inner voice thinks about this. And then it'd be like, should I go on a second or third date with this guy because I think he's marriage material? And I'm like, that's not where you start. These are not the decisions you start with to try and tune into your inner voice, because your mind's just going to hijack it, you know. And so like things like, you know, should we buy this house or that house? Should we rent or buy? Should we buy a flat or a forever home? Should I go for this job or this place? Should I move to this country or this city? I'm like, that's not where you start, because that'll just put you in a panic, and it'll just make you second guess the decision that you're making. So when you're starting out, the way to develop the relationship with the inner voice, well, one way, the way that worked for me, was to start with inconsequential questions that make no difference to your life. Doesn't affect anyone else, doesn't affect you. It's like questions like, I think the easiest way to start was with yes or no. Should I wear that dress? Yes or no. Yes or no is like easier than words.
Yeah.
I think that's where I started. Yes or no questions. Should I have tea? No? Okay. Should I have coffee? Yes. You know, so it's yes or no questions. And it's just the gut. Like, it's just your gut. You're just tuning into your gut, your body, getting out of your head and getting into your gut. And so from there, the next small step is, well, we'll ask the question, should I have tea or coffee? And see if it says anything like tea or coffee. These are words now. Yeah. You know, should I take the highway or the back roads? Back roads. Okay. Why? It looks like it's clear. And then later you realize there's an accident up the road, you know? It's like things like that. And so then you work on the binary question, the binary questions. And in that way, you're just tuning into your gut, because your gut is not your inner voice. The reason why I've got the gut as the first step is because it's not your mind. Your gut's not your mind, but it's also not your inner voice. Yeah. That's what I believe. I think there's some discussions out there that might...
We're talking about intuition and everything else.
Yeah, and follow your gut. Yeah. My belief around this, my experience around it, is that your gut's not your inner voice. Your gut is your body talking to you, and your body holds your history. It holds your memories. It holds your past experiences, your even like what you've brought in from your parents and, you know, your genetic makeup. Like, that's your body. It's telling you what it already knows. And so it's great as a starting point, but it's not 100% everything you need, because there's also painful traumatic experiences in your body. In your body, and your body will react to it even if your mind's over it and your consciousness has moved over and is fine. There's still, the body's holding on to the emotions and the pain of it. And so you might think your gut is saying, don't go for that. Don't go on that date. And it's really just fear. It's really just fear. It's just fear and past trauma and experiences that are going, last time we felt this way, we got hurt. So squeeze, tense. And so the gut, you know, the real inner voice communicating through your body is underneath trauma, underneath layers of emotions and memories. But these memories also have a positive effect. That's why it's good to kind of tune into your gut, because your history is a lot of information that's useful. You know, like, it's useful. So you don't have to remember every single thing that you've been taught, every decision and attitude you've made consciously. That's just too much. You just need to know, do you want tea or coffee today? You don't have to, like...
Start simple.
Start simple. But your subconscious holds all of this information for you. So you don't have to hold it in your head. But you want to be able to access it when you want. And so the gut helps with that. The gut is like your body's interface between your subconscious and your conscious. So you can feel certain messages and ideas through your body that will help with your decision making, because you might have forgotten a few things consciously from the past that your gut will remind you of. But it's not a foolproof method of being guided and having your decisions be well thought out. There's more aspects that need to be considered, and that's why you move on to further and further parts down, you know, further along, so that you can get to a place where you're listening to your inner voice, which is not your body. It's the part of you that's connected to a dimension that is beyond your ego identity. Your ego is connected to your mind, and your mind, if it's not your best friend, it's working against you, believes the stories that you're mind is thinking. Your mind thinks, your body feels, but your inner voice guides. And so when you are able to distinguish between the voice of your ego, which is your mind, and the voice of your inner voice, your guide, they've got different tones.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a different experience. So I don't demonize the mind because my mind is my best friend. But it used to be my inner critic. And that's the work. So you wanna change your mind from being your inner critic, like just like your worst enemy on your shoulder all the time. It's so much suffering. People suffer so much because they've got a mind against them. That's why they keep busy. They just want to keep busy, distracted. Yeah, because it's just too much to deal with that in me. And so if you can shift that and work with your mind so that it's no longer an inner critic, but your inner support, your cheerleader, that's not delusional. Like, it'll also kick your butt if you're not behaving and if you need to grow. So it's not like a rose-colored voice. It's still a very intelligent voice, but it's not going to make you tune into shame and guilt. It wants you to tune in. It can tune into anger, because anger is a moving emotion. Like, get angry about it, you'll do something about it. That gets you out of frustration, or it might tune you into desire. Like, what do you want? Think about what you want. Is this what you want? Think about what you want. It'll move you into reason. Think about this logically. Like, okay, this is how you're feeling about it. Well, what do you think about it logically? It might move you further up into the vibrational emotional chain of joy, of love, of appreciation, of bliss. And so your mind can either pull you down the emotional chain into fear, into anger, into sadness, into shame, into guilt and then shame, or it can help you move up the chain. And so it's the same mind. You can train it. You can train it to advise you. And you can say, we don't, like, the first part of the book is about the way my inner voice helped me guide my inner dialogue with those instructions. And that was just, at 11, you have no idea what's going on. But now at like 30, 35, you can reflect back and read other people's words and books and information and go, I think that's what it was doing. It was stopping me from, like, pulverizing myself down into the spiral that just makes me feel like life is I'm so miserable. It's so hideous, into a place where life is good. Life is okay. I can handle anything.
Yeah, if every preteen had that moment,
I know.
can you imagine this world right now?
I know.
Like,
so
it would be
privileged.
so empowering. And like, even just reading that, you just think, I wish I'd had that when I was younger.
I was
because
so lucky.
You're exactly right, like you said about, like, the name calling, looking in the mirror, you're saying, like, you're a stunning, beautiful person, but, like, to think of you as 11-year-old self picking apart yourself.
Everything.
Like, and I was thinking about, like, oh my God, we all have that.
Yeah.
Like, not just then, even now more so.
Yeah.
Just kind of going back to your 11-year-old self and thinking about the whole idea of the inner child. How is that different to the inner voice?
Oh, okay.
Is it different?
The inner child to the inner voice? This is how it's different. The inner child is working at the body level. And so when trauma has happened, and trauma doesn't have to be like horrific car accidents and surgery or any type of abuse, mental, physical abuse. It can be as simple as a sharp word from a parent. And then that becomes like a sticking point. And so what I call it frozen memories. So these memories get frozen in because the emotion got stuck. So, you felt guilt or you felt shame in that moment as a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old. They say that that's when you get shaped. This is what's happening when you're getting shaped. These memories get frozen into you and they become your personality because you start operating out of that. And so it's who you get conditioned to be. And so the inner voice is the journey with the inner voice is all about unlearning all that, like deconditioning yourself from who you were conditioned to be to who you really are. And so the inner child works with those frozen memories to help that child heal. Because when you notice people react and not respond and they're triggered off, they're going back into that frozen memory and they can start talking like they're 2. They can just start talking like they're 2 years old and they're traumatized and they're throwing tantrums and they're not listening. It's like, I want this. I don't care. And then it's not them. You know, they can be highly intelligent, highly functional people, but then they get triggered off and then that's who they become. And they've just reverted back to that frozen memory that's still active. That vibration is still active in them. And so the inner child, the work we do with the inner child is all about going into those frozen memories as they arise, you know, as they arise. Just do it as it arises. This journey needs to be joyful. It doesn't have to be like,
of course.
you don't want it to be like a university degree.
Yeah.
Like arduous. Just as it arises. It's like, that's not who I am. Why did I react that way? All right. And then you go into how you're feeling. There's a whole like many methods of working with the inner child. But it really is working with those frozen memories to help that energy release and that vibration move on, because you address the emotional heaviness, charge on that experience. Now, most of those experiences are not in our conscious mind. They're in our subconscious mind, because they happen when 2, 3, 4, like you don't remember it. Yeah. And so there's all these other modalities and techniques where you go and see someone who can help you access it. What you will notice is your behavior as an adult. You're like, that's not how I want to behave, but I can't stop it. Why can't I stop it? Okay, there's something stuck in me. Go and find someone that can help you get it unstuck, release it. And then what happens with that inner child is that they become free of it. The pain releases, the body releases, the emotions release, and that inner child can just play. So that child at that age really just wanted to play, be loved, be seen, be heard. Yeah. And they got it from you as an adult. Yeah. There's this lovely saying that says, be the parent that you needed at the time. That voice, that big sister, that big brother, like be the parent you needed at the time. And so that's the inner child work, going back and sorting out those memories so that when you consciously now think back on those memories, there's no charge. It's not positive, it's not negative, it happened, these are the lessons. There's no charge. It's not in you anymore, you're not thinking about it. And that's different from the inner voice.
I think that's really important to know, especially when you're reading this, because you do touch on the inner child and you talk about dealing with your past as well as being present. And by being in the present, you can be more in touch with your inner voice. Yeah. You talked about the outer environment and the inner environment and trying to like navigate through that. And I think that's there's some really awesome practical tips. Yeah. Like even from my point of view, I'm like, oh my God, I must do this. Like I really want to go back, clear some time and just get things done. Yeah. Do you mind sharing some of that with our readers?
Yeah, I mean, there's times when I just wish I was born a Virgo, because all my Virgo friends,
they just got it down,
are amazing at this. They just have such neat spaces. I'm like, how does your mind work like that? And my husband is born, like we're born on exactly the same day, different years. So 14th of February, Valentine's Day, we're both born on the same day. And so, but he's got these characteristics. I'm like, maybe it is just maybe the way you're raised. There's other things to it. So it's not just, I used to reject the idea of putting effort into tidying up my space because I'm not born that way. I'm not a Virgo. They do it naturally. I'm Aquarians. I'm an Aquarius, which means I have neat piles everywhere on the floor. It's not a mess. They're just piles.
Organized mess.
It's organized chaos. Yep. So for a long time, and I think it was a good lesson for me because I see this happen a lot where you see someone who's really good at something and you completely discount the effort required to get them there. You're like, well, they're natural. Oh, Oprah's great because, well, she's a natural speaker. You just discount all the effort she's put in over the years to be as natural as to all the lessons she's learned.
Didn't happen overnight.
It's like, no, she wasn't born that way. No. Yes, she might have had some talent and skill. She worked hard. And so it was a good lesson for me just in the simplicity of keeping my house neat that, don't give yourself a pass for being messy because you're not born that way. Like that was the lesson I needed to learn. Like don't let yourself off the hook so easily because you're not born with a skill. Find the skill. Like it is just a skill. And so the importance of the environment, like being conducive for silence, because what you're pointing to is when I talk about the inner silence is really important. That's what we're talking about, the mind and the emotions, and finding ways to create inner silence. But the outer silence is so practical to do that you wake up and your room's a mess, and I'm still guilty of this, And your mind is already listing all your to-do lists of the things that you need to do, and you haven't even got up yet. And it's just heavy. It's tiring. And so instead of waking up, a gentleman that read the book said, the best part of the book is when you said, when you wake up and your room's clean, because he's just like me. It takes effort to keep things neat and organized. He's like, instead of waking up with a to-do list of what you have to do, if everything's in place, you wake up and go, well, what do I want to do today?
Yeah,
and he just came to me and he said, that's a game changer. And it was so lovely because he's got 2 kids and, they're under 6. He's got a beautiful wife. There's 4 of them in the family. And that was the thing that he took out of the book. That's like, that changed everything for me, because now it's like, okay, this gave me the impetus to make the change that I always am nagging myself to do, to go, well, that's just a little perspective shift that he needed to then go, this is why it's worth it, because the next day I get to be free. And it's that freedom that brings in the relaxation. And,
I think that's, I think definitely, like, especially with, Marie Kondo, and I love her work. Like she's great, obviously, sparking joy and organizing things and everything. But I think what you get from reading your book is that step further of the fact that it's not just cleanliness, it's just that, like, just that silence. Whereas when I think of silence, and most people would think the same, silencing the outer environment, you just think, oh, you just need to sit in silence.
Yeah.
But this is actually like looking at the space you're in, whether it's at work or even at home, and thinking about these things. I love that.
Yeah,
really love that.
It's using a different sense. So normally silence is thought of with sound, right? But this is sight.
Yeah.
So it's silence and relaxation visually, which was just a whole other dimension of spirituality for me, because I didn't pay any attention to it. And then I realized, wait, you're trying to meditate in a room that's like a complete mess. Help yourself out, tidy it up, and you feel like less stress. It's just the practical little hints that I've got along the way.
It's true. Sense. You get distracted. You think, oh no, I have to do this later, I have to do that later, and everything else just add to it. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to just talk about your career and how it kind of set you on that path to where you are today. So you actually started off as a physio.
I did.
I know.
Yeah. So funny enough, I mean, that's a whole nother story, and just not following my inner voice. And I love physio. I'm currently a practice manager in my husband and my physio clinic. And so I'm still in the world of physio and physical health in that manner. But when I was in year 12 and I was 17 years old, and I went through the university course book, which is so thick from A to Z, the only thing I circled was naturopathy.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
And I told my dad, and he's like, no. One, I mean, if people know, Indians are only allowed to be engineers, doctors, and maybe lawyers if you're lucky. And so anything like natural therapies.
Not heard of.
I mean, but, it's so bizarre because Ayurveda comes from India.
It's true.
So anyway, so I listened to my dad's voice and not my inner voice, and found an equivalent that met his expectations and my parents' expectations. And so I did physio because I remembered the decision of why I did physio at 17, 18 years old, was I said, I can go and learn for 4 years about a topic that's outside of myself. Like, I wanted to be an astronaut for a period of time. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to do all these things. They're very externally based, and I'm a very internal person. And I said, I won't be able to do as much in those areas if I don't know who I am and if I don't know how I operate. And so I remember at a young age wanting to know this, wanting to know what this is, what's going on here. What is this? What's this brain? And so I wanted to do naturopathy because it was a natural way of approaching the body. But I did physio, and physio was just very physically focused. There's no emotions in an elbow. Well, there is, but that's another story. But that's not how you work with people. And so, I worked for like 9 years, 10 years as a physiotherapist. But after the first month of working full time, in fact, after the first year and a half of studying, I wanted to quit. And I sat down and I meditated until I heard my inner voice, because at that time it was not on tap. Like, I couldn't just tune in when I wanted to. It was a real struggle because my mind was so loud. And I just said, I'm so tired of hearing myself complain about it. I was sick of complaining. and I sat in a quiet room, just my dorm room, and I said, do I keep going or do I finish it? And I just, after like probably a few hours of meditating, I heard finish it. And so I did. I didn't complain about it again. I graduated, I finished it, and then I started working. And a month in, I was like, this is not right for me. I don't feel it, but I'll still keep going and I'll keep studying other things. And so I ended up doing a chakras course, just a short course at a natural therapies college. And I did meridians, Chinese meridians, because it was just what I was interested in. You know, so I just went in the direction of what excited me. And so from there, I went and did NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy, life coaching, hypnotherapy, and then a few years later, I did past life regression therapy, which is a whole nother thing. I did Reiki. So I was just feeding myself with all of these modalities, and then I did coaching, and I started coaching. And an interesting story is that I started off what most hypnotherapists and coaches start off with, was just quit smoking, help people quit smoking, help people lose weight. So I did that, and it was great. But what I found was that with the people that wanted to lose weight, there was a relationship at the heart of it. Like maybe 8 out of 10 clients that I saw, there was a relationship that was not healthy, frozen negative memories around particular relationships that was still playing out for them, whether it was their sister or their brother or their father or their mother, like something like that was kind of the root cause, the pain that fueled the issues with their weight that they felt. And so this is a really interesting story. So I helped a lot of people with weight loss because we addressed the relationship, and then I went more into relationship coaching. But I wanted to share this story about this lovely lady that came in. And she said, I've got no issues losing weight. I can lose weight. It's just that I can't keep it off. And so the term is yo-yo dieting. And so she'd done it 3 times where she'd lost a lot of weight, got about 5 kilos within her goal weight, and then just put it all back on as like faster than she'd lost it. And it happened 3 times, and that's when the hypnotherapist gets the call, like, we'll try that now. Try diet, exercise, we'll try a hypnotherapist. And so she came in, and I was doing long format sessions. So like, it was hard. It was arduous for the client and for me, but it was really intense and very powerful. It was like 4 to 6 hour sessions. So it was a day. I would only see one person a day, and maybe only like 2 or 3 a week. Gosh. So it was like real long format. And the first half was just the history, and the second half was the clearing. And so in her history, there was nothing. We couldn't find a thing. She had a healthy childhood, healthy relationships with the parents, nothing. And she was looking. She's had a beautiful husband, 2 beautiful kids. Like, there was no massive trauma. Nothing happened. And nothing came to her mind. And I was like, there's always something. And I'm like, this is new. Like, I've not met someone and worked with someone who had nothing really in the history. And so I actually tuned into my inner voice and my guides and whatnot. And I just had this idea to just get her to close her eyes and imagine being at your goal weight. And I just said, just close your eyes and just imagine you're there. You're there. That 5 kilos is off. You're there. It's done. And it was only about, 10 minutes, 15-minute process where you kind of spend about 5-10 minutes getting the relaxation going, just relaxing the body, and then asking certain questions. And so it was very soon after I said, okay, now you're at your goal weight. How does it feel? And she didn't say anything, but I saw her whole physiology change. She started sweating, breathing really heavily, and her posture changed. And it was almost like she was just about to go into a panic attack. Oh, gosh. And I said, what's going on? She's like, I don't know. And then we came out of it, opened her eyes and just relaxed. And I said, what happened? She's like, I don't know. And I was like, oh, what's going on? This is the first time it ever happened. It's happened several times since, but this was the first time it happened. And I had no skills to go off. So it was just really tuning in to myself and to her to see what she needed, to give her what she needed. And we just talked a lot about it. And it came up because she'd accessed the subconscious that had come up, but it hadn't formulated yet. So the door was open. The things were coming up. And what ended up happening was we realized after a lot of investigation in that same session, when she loses weight, every time, she starts feeling better. She starts walking more confidently. She feels amazing. She's wearing outfits. She's walking down the street. People's heads are turning. Women are giving her compliments. Men are giving her compliments. And her body registered that her husband, she hadn't picked this up consciously, but her body had picked up that her husband was feeling really at odds with this attention that she would get. And his insecurities were coming up of, I'm going to lose her. I'm going to lose her. And so that was coming up in she was picking it up subconsciously that this is what was going on with her husband. And so subconsciously, the question that was being asked subconsciously and the decision was being made was, you either lose your weight or you lose your husband. That was the subconscious question. And so the body knows what she wants. It's like, I'm not losing my husband. I'll put the weight back on. And it happened 3 times. And so it was the easiest solution. I said, you need to go home. I need to talk to your husband and say, I'm not going anywhere. This is all for you. This is all good. Nothing's happening. Like, this is all good. This is good for our kids. And talk about why this is a good thing to keep in our lives. Like, why this is me moving forward. Why it's good for my daughter, my children to see their mom set a goal, reach it, be happy, feel good, look good, all that kind of stuff. And it was done. There was no trauma. There was no like sister rivalry or it was nothing. And it was just fascinating, the relationship with the inner voice. And so that subconscious work really was the foundation for now doing work more with the inner voice with clients, because I think once people understand what their subconscious is and how to work with it, they know what's blocking them from hearing their inner voice. And so moving now more into the blogs that I did about 3 cups full and being full inside. So the 3 cups are love, acceptance, respect. I'm loved, I belong, and I contribute. And so those 3 things, when they're full and you're not leaking, there's no holes in the boat or in the cup, you've got enough energy to give. And so when you're relaxed and your mind is not depleting you and you understand what situations make you lose your power, nothing makes you, but, you hand over your power in those situations and you figure out how not to do that. And so you're contained with your power. If you have such a full container that then you can get access to other things that are trying to get in. Not just feeling okay and feeling happy and feeling relaxed and not feeling shame and not feeling sad. It's like, well, what do we want to do now? Where are we going? What's the guidance that's coming through? It's a whole different way of approaching the world. And so that's kind of the windy road of my career.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's that's just one of the very powerful experiences that you share in the book. So, it's just, it's especially weight loss. That's something that so many people battle with all the time.
Yeah.
Even if they don't necessarily admit it to everyone.
Yeah.
That's the constant thing. Not just women, it's men equally so.
And just on that, just for the listeners, there's a story in there about a guy that came in for weight loss. Because he looked like a bodybuilder. He was cut. I'm like, why are you here? But I'd seen enough people to understand why. Because it's not what you see, it's how you feel.
Exactly.
And that's what we worked on. Yeah. You, to the world, you might look fine. It's like, you've got no issues with weight. And it's like, actually, no, this is actually torturous. Having to go to the gym, having to count my calories, it's controlling me. It's suffocating me. How do I relax around it? Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Just on that note, in terms of like the client experiences and just not just clients, but other people you have worked with, you've imparted advice to myself, so many friends, people in our spiritual community as well. Is it possible to hear other people's inner voices?
Oh, that's a really good question. This is my thought about the inner voice. It's one voice. Because I believe it's the voice of consciousness. It's the highest divinity, the highest power, what people call God, what people call the universe. It's different voices, or I just say the inner voice, because I find the word inner voice makes it real to you, and it's inside you. But I believe it's coming from the same source, and that's when we say everyone's connected and everyone's one, and the oneness and the one consciousness. That impulse, that highest divinity is the same in you as it is in me. It's the Atma. It's the spark of divinity that's in you. It's the God within. It's the same voice, but I was talking to a really lovely gentleman who's around 60, 70 years old, and he's a really devout Christian, and he's read the book, and he said, I need to take you out for lunch because I've got so many questions. He's like, look, this inner voice, like, I think it's God. And I'm like, it is. It is. But that's just the languaging. Yeah. It's just the languaging. It's semantics. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, that's exactly. He's like, no. It's God's voice. It's not your inner voice. And the way I explained my position on it to him was, I said, yeah, but Bill, God's got a different plan for you than he has for me. He's not going to tell you the same exact thing he's telling me. He's got a plan for you, and he's got a plan for me. So it's your connection to that voice. And as I said, it's just words. It's just semantic. I just say your inner voice because I believe in my soul and my spark of divinity. But it is the one power that's coming through. And that's why I feel when everyone listens, knows there's an inner voice, tunes in, listens to it, has the courage to follow it, we will become a community that works together without too much effort. Like, we're using the mind, and it's really good. It's coming from a very low vibration place to a high vibration place. The internet has just shown us what's already there. I don't know if the world's any worse. I feel like maybe it is a little bit worse than we anticipated, but it's because we're just seeing what's there. We're seeing the suffering of people, whether they're suffering inside or whether they're suffering in their communities. We're seeing the suffering. And so when everyone's tuned in to this voice that's vibration is love and vibration is unity and community, then that inner voice is going to look after all of us. The caveat with the inner voice to know, how do I know it's the inner voice and not my mind? Your inner voice will never ask you to harm yourself or anyone else. It does not bring judgment, and it does not bring harm, whether it's thought, word, or deed, to anyone, to yourself or to anyone else. And so if there's any trace of that, it's coming from the mind, because the mind separates and the soul and the inner voice unifies. And so I think just my purpose, especially with this book anyway, is that I wanted to share stories of my journey with the inner voice, because people will then see it is a journey. It takes effort. It takes work. Some people are born with a clear vessel and, they can just hear it. And then people like me, it takes so much work and so much effort. But that effort, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a relationship that you can have with this inner voice that will guide your decisions. It's very different to the way we're taught to make decisions. We don't have to throw everything out. We can still, with our mind, get a piece of paper and write down all the options, the pros, the cons, and really logically approach it. But then you walk away and go to the beach and sit with it, and then maybe the most logical path is not the path that's right for you. And so you have to have the courage to just go on a path. It's not to go in a direction that's not illogical, it's just non-logical. Because 4 years later or 2 years later or 1 month later, you'll look back and it'll be logical. Yeah. You can join the dots looking back but not looking forward. And so it's not illogical to follow the inner voice. It's just non-linear. It's non-logical. It's not irrational. It's just non-rational. And it's because you're projecting forward. But once you're in the future, in that moment, hindsight, 2020, looking back, it's like, oh, that makes sense. And everyone will be like, well, that was just logical. Yeah, there's no magic there. I'm like, there's a lot of magic there.
There is, Well, you share some amazing examples when, I don't want to give too much away because people can read it for themselves, like in terms of buying a house, to so many different examples where it's like helped you and it still continues to help you. So if anything, on behalf of all our listeners and readers, really grateful that you've gone and done that hard work and had to go through those experiences, fortunately. See, hindsight. And shared that wisdom within this beautiful book, because honestly, as just being able to hear your stories like in person, but also get to remember them and know that, timing, when this has come out at the time it was meant to be, for all of us to take this in. And I think even though it's been 4 years, the time is definitely now. And I feel privileged to follow your work and be inspired by it. And I'm sure everyone else will. Where can we get copies of these babies?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, love. It's been such a pleasure.
It's been amazing.
This is the best way to launch a book, everyone.
Yeah.
Like, this is so much fun.
This is a great Sunday morning.
I know, yeah. So the book is available online. You can get it from Amazon in Australia and all Amazon websites. It's also available on Kindle.
Yeah.
It's available at the Book Depository, and you can just go to my website, sharanyanaidoo.com. We'll link it up, and all the options there with the links to how you can get the book will be available there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure off the back of this, everyone will have lots of questions and comments. So please make sure you comment, like, share, send it around the world, because this is wisdom that the world needs, and it's just gonna have that huge ripple effect. It already is, and it's so grateful, and so thank exciting. You, and we love exciting. You on behalf of everyone.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, it's a conversation. Like, the book is meant to be a conversation starter, and so it's not about my wisdom. It's about the wisdom that's come from experiences because of the inner voice. And so the inner voice, it takes a lot of credit. I take full responsibility for the actions and for the words and everything, but the credit really goes to the part of me that's the wisest part of me. And so when everyone is tuned into that, and we all share our stories together and ask lots of questions, because this is a conversation. I want this conversation to spread around the world. And for little children to start talking about their inner voice, amazing. Because it's something that I feel this is the next level of our evolution. We've seen the world created from the mind when it's a destructive mind, and the wars and the things we did to each other, the horrific things we did to each other. That's still not lost today. Like, there's still that around, but we've come through to a self-appreciating mind, where we're learning about how to bring our mind on side, a lot of psychology and studies, and now focusing on wellness.
Yes.
Not just injury prevention, but what does a well mind look like? A good, healthy mind and, experience look like? But we're now moving into a place where we need to be guided by something beyond our mind. And that's where the inner voice comes in, because we need a wisdom that's beyond what we know from the past. We need something that can push us out and project us into the future. So when we look back, we go, oh, that makes sense. That makes total sense. That was, of course, the way to solve that problem. That's how we solved climate change. Why didn't we think of that before? That's how we solved the plastics in the ocean. That's, so those solutions will come from these intuitive, divinely guided, love-based energy and wisdom. And because of that, everyone doing their bit, everything will get done, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed with how much there is to do in the world. And everyone, I encourage everyone just to find their bit. Yeah. And your inner voice will help you find your bit. And you just focus on that. And if everyone does that, everything gets done.
Amazing.
Everything gets done.
That's such a powerful message. I love also the fact that, like, you never forget, and you have so much gratitude to everyone. So, like, the last page, you can see the camera.
I love that page.
It's such a lovely page. It's got all the...
I had essays written. I'm like, no, just so many different... into a love heart.
Yeah, so exactly. Why not? Just so many different influences in your life that you talk about, not just family and friends, but also your spiritual leaders. Sai Baba, who's obviously our spiritual guru, as well as so many other greats that you've mentioned here. Like, the list is endless, but... it just goes to show that this is the hard work that you put
standing on shoulders.
And exactly, but you are definitely one of them, and that's is a testament to that. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
And I'm sure everyone will enjoy it. Yeah.
Done. Nice.
High five.
Done.
Well done.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it.
Make sure you get your copy. I've got mine. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.